In this video, we're going to be painting the 2nd Gen 4Runner. I'll show you how I prepare each panel for paint, how I turn my garage into a spray booth, and I'll share with you some common mistakes to avoid and some pro tips to pay attention to when painting a vehicle in your garage. Let's do it. All right, we just went around the whole vehicle and any body work that we had. I used a block sander to block out the primer, see if we had any highs and lows that needed a little bit more work. Any other spots like this wasn't body work. Maybe there was a couple little dings, scratches, peeling clear coat. That's in primer. I went around with a scuff pad. Here, I'll show you. So I use a pad like this, which is a little bit firmer of a foam on the back, softer foam on the front. So depending on the contours of the body panel, I'll use both sides. On that, we used 320 grit sandpaper. So I just wrapped the block in the sandpaper, kind of like that. Well, I centered it a little bit better than that. And then I go around, and then if I need to, I'll actually take the sandpaper, fold it, and go around places like the door handle or right around the trims for the windows, stuff like that. And the areas that I don't use that block, I'll actually knock down the primer with a dual action sander. This one, I have several of them. This is the one that I'm using today. It's a 6-inch pad, and I'm using 320 on that. So I'll actually hit where I don't need to block it out for body work. I use a 320 DA, dual action sander, and that'll hit the primer down, knock it down real fast, and then I'll finish it up with a hand sand on the 320. So right now, everything is 320'd out. Body work looks real good. I'm gonna go over the vehicle now with the dual action sander again. So I'm gonna use 600 grit on the sand, on the dual action sander. And these are the hook and loop. So on a dual action, they'll just peel up, and then these will go on just like that. I don't have to line the holes up right now because I'm not using a vacuum. My vacuum's died in the process of doing the body work. So also, guys, note when you're using pneumatic tools and you're putting them through the paces, you do need to use a little oil. Drop it in the air inlet right here. I usually use like 3-4 drops of oil every few hours if I'm using it. And then before I use it the next day, I'll also oil it up before the initial use. So right now we'll go around with the DA. I'll line that sandpaper up just a little bit better. 600 around the whole truck, and that'll be the final sand. There are gonna be little areas, especially kind of like in here, where the DA is not gonna get, and I'll hand sand all those with 600. I mean, this process, I make it sound real easy, but this process, I've been sanding for 4 hours already. So I'm gonna go around with the 600. Hopefully that'll go a little faster, and I'll blow it off, and then we'll look at what needs to be spot primed. All right, guys, we're using the 600 for the final sand before paint, and we'll put it on the DA here. Oh, by the way, I'm using, that's not going directly on the DA. I'm using an interface pad. Interface pad is just this, it's a soft pad that goes directly onto the DA. So it's a hook and loop, interface pad, that soft spongy pad, and then I'm using this. The reason why I'm using interface is these panels are very contoured. There's a lot of curves and dips. So this will, the interface pad will help go over those panels nice and smoothly, and it'll kind of contour with the shape of the panel. If it was a flat panel, I would not be using the interface pad. So, and also if the body work was not straight, I will not be using an interface pad, probably not even a DA. I'd block sand everything by hand, or if it was a show car, it'd be a complete block sand. And then we'll mask it up, get ready for paint. Oh, I'm gonna swing this thing around. If you haven't seen yet, there's my new camping setup. I have the Zion off-road trailer, which I'm going to do a walk around on soon. Yes, it's in the distance there. Let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. This thing is badass, man. I love this trailer. So it's sitting in the street because I need to pull out of the garage to get this 4Runner in and make a little bit more room, and I don't want to get it all dusty. So I'm not putting a lot of pressure. I'm just letting the DA glide over the top It's the pressure is very, very minimal. I'm not forcing it into the panel at all. My goal here is just to get any of the 320 scratches out. So the 600 has gives the paint a nice surface to adhere to, and get rid of any of the scratches from the 320 that might be too deep for the paint to not cover. I'll continue doing this over the entire vehicle. Any place that I can hit with that sander, I'll use the 600 on the machine, and any areas that I can't get that sander into will be done by hand, either with the foam pad that I showed you earlier in the video or with a gray scuff pad. Sometimes I use the gray, sometimes I use the maroon or reddish one, but I typically do the gray right before paint. The gray is equivalent more to a 600 grit sandpaper, so I'll use the gray in those tight areas. After it's completely sanded down, I'll blow it off. I'll pull the vehicle outside in the driveway, and I will give it a quick wash. After washing it, I'm going to use blowers to force dry it and make sure all the water is out from all the cracks and crevices before I mask it up. While the vehicle is in the driveway, I'm going to blow out and completely clean the inside of the garage and get it ready to set up for my little paint booth. I did all of these steps off camera. I actually had a friend of mine help me mask it up and set the paint booth up. So let's get to the actual painting of the 4Runner. The day is finally here. We're going to paint the second gen 4Runner. So let me show you my my setup. I'm going to be painting this in my garage, and so here's the 4Runner all set up, masked. I do have to touch up a couple spots with some primer beforehand. On the floor here to protect it, I did some construction paper, and it's all wrapped. It also keeps the dust down. I have 2 fans. I set up some tables on the side. I also wrapped those with construction paper, and this is what I'll be mixing in my paint and doing any kind of prep work before I start shooting. I hung plastic. I had a friend help me prep the 4Runner, masking it up and also hanging the plastic here. So I wrapped the garage in plastic to protect my tools and everything else that's in the garage. So here's a little, I just used duct tape, put it to the ceiling, and then on the floor we put some heavy items just to hold it down because the fans want to suck the plastic forward. Here's the second fan, so I have one on each side. The idea here is when I'm shooting, I'm going to keep the fans on low. And then after I do a coat, I'm going to put the fans on high to take out any extra overspray or any extra atomization of the paint that's in the air. So the wheels are masked up with plastic wraps and the paper here. I also have lights that I have 2 on each side, one here, one back there, and then 2 on the other side. We are using a Harbor Freight McGraw compressor. These are the specs right here. Is it ideal? No, but it's gonna work. I'm using a low volume, low pressure gun. I have an air and water filter right here in line, and then I also have one on the gun. Let me show you the gun that we're gonna use. So this is my gun stand when I have everything together. I'll show you how that works. The gun here is, I have also an inline filter for water, and then a pressure regulator, but this is the InoKraft Drizzle. Hate the name, but I have not used an LVLP gun before, so it's low volume, low pressure. I am used to a high volume, low pressure gun, HVLP. So it's going to be interesting to see how this works out. I do have my HVLP on standby in case I have to switch over and I can't get used to this low volume, low pressure gun. The idea of using this gun is to keep overspray down because I am shooting in the garage. I do need to wipe the truck down with a wax and grease remover, so I'm going to be using the CMX by Mothers. I have not used this before. I usually use stuff out of a gallon from the auto body shop, but I was in a pinch and we're going to see how that works. Hopefully it works well. So I'm going to wipe the whole truck down with the wax and grease remover, use microfiber towels to keep the lint down and any kind of scratches that may occur if you use a abrasive towel or rag. And then also before we start shooting, I'm going to hit it with some air and an attack rag. I do like having the convenience of the wax and grease remover in a spray bottle. So I just spray it over one panel, do one panel at a time. Just mist it on, you don't need a lot of this stuff, and then use a microfiber towel to wipe it off and dry it completely. I check the microfiber towel cloth out, and if there's any kind of residue on there, I'll flip it over and use a clean side. So I have a few towels going at the same time to do the entire vehicle. Using wax and grease remover is a necessity. Do not skip this step. There are contaminants, oils, and other things that are on your hands and potentially left in the paint. And those need to be removed, or you will potentially have interaction with the base coat and or clear coat. If you see excessive fish eyes or things like that, you know that you did not prep the panel correctly. After the wax and grease remover, I go around the entire body again with compressed air coming out of the gun and a tack rag. And I just get any kind of final hairs or dust or anything like that off the body panels before I start spraying. So I already have the base coat mixed and it's in the gun. I'm doing this right before I start my base coat. My first few coats are just going over the primed areas just to get some coverage. This can take anywhere between 2 to 4 coats, so you need to keep on checking every time you do a coat. And in particular, the first coat I do fairly light. I want to make sure that I don't have any interactions and that the paint is laying down the way I want it to, the fan pattern's right, the pressure's right, things like that. So I'll do the first coat pretty light, and then I'll go back once that dries and hit it with the second and third or fourth if I need that. Between every coat, I use a tack rag to get any of the overspray off the panel and anything that's laid on top of the panel that I do not want in the paint. So right now, the coverage seems to be fairly good. I ended up doing, I think 3 or 4 coats of the base coat to cover the primed areas. And once those areas were covered, I moved on to painting all the panels. So each panel got fully painted, and I did 2 coats of that. I'm going to do 2 more full coats of the base coat and I should be covered, but we're going to check it out after. All right, so the base coat is done. I'm going to show you that in just a second. I'm mixing the clear coat up right now. I'm using, it's called Finish One by Acme. I have it in this measuring container right here. I'm doing a 4-to-1 ratio. So right now I have it on the 3, on the 4-to-1 chart right here, and then the 1 part will be the hardener here. So I'm going to add the hardener. I'm going to mix it, get it all ready. And then I'll go show you the base coat, how that came out. We'll tack that off and shoot clear coat. We're going to do 2 coats today. By the way, for the clear coat, I'm going to switch guns. The InoKraft gun that I showed you in the beginning of the video, actually the low volume, low pressure, shot well. It shot real well. I was actually pleasantly surprised. However, if you're shooting a whole car, I don't think it's ideal. And the reason is the fan pattern. And I don't know if it's all these cheaper guns. It's about an $80 to $100 gun. All these cheaper guns seem to be very similar. And I don't know if the InoKraft just has a smaller fan pattern than the others, or if they all have small fan patterns. But I'm going back to my old school gun. I've done hundreds of paint jobs with this. You can see the cup. Unfortunately, it doesn't have the disposable system, which really stinks. I'm not set up for that. I didn't expect to be using this today, but this is an Optima gun made in Germany, and I've used this for probably about 7 years. So it's never done me wrong. I haven't used it for a while, so I just broke it out, and I'm hoping all the seals and everything are tight. They're not going to leak, and everything is going to work well. But let's go look at the base coat. So I have I expected to do 2 coats over the primer and then 2 coats over each panel. I ended up doing, I think, 1 additional coat. The coverage wasn't as good as I had liked. And you can see kind of on the hood where the fan pattern was tough for me to get complete overlap. You want to get like anywhere between 60 to 70% overlap. Some people do slightly less, some do slightly more. I like to do on the higher end, and the fan pattern turned out to max was just a little too narrow for me. So I'm going to the Optima gun. I have the clear coat mixed. I'm going to go tack this off right now. I'm going to shoot the first coat of clear and we'll see how that goes. Hopefully that gun is as good as when I used it last. So this is only the first coat of the clear coat, and I'm still playing with the gun settings. There's so many variables to look out for when it comes to the settings for the gun, the pressure, the distance, also using different types of clear coat and the types of weather, the humidity. So a lot of variables to take into consideration when shooting. The first coat of clear I usually shoot at a medium to medium heavy. I just want to get an idea of how it's going to lay down, how it's going to flow. Then the second coat, I use a full wet coat. So this is only the first coat. So right now I'm just getting an idea of how this clear coat is laying down and how the settings on my gun are working with this clear coat. So I will continue to clear and make adjustments as need be. And then the second coat will be, like I said, a full wet coat. Well guys, clear coat is finished. I did 2 coats, and I have to say, my tried and true gun, Optima HVLP, came through. I'm gonna see if I can do a walk around. The that gun that I used originally for the base coat, man, the fan pattern was just way too small. I busted out the old gun that I used to shoot all the time, and I shot the clear coat with that, and it was night and day. Fan pattern was awesome, nice and wide, very consistent, laid down the clear coat beautifully. So with the exception of some dust and a couple pieces of hair in the clear, it looks really, really nice. Very impressed. So I went around with my tweezers to try to pick out some of the hairs, and I wasn't having luck. They were too embedded in there. So we'll see if I can get them up with a little bit of wet sanding. I don't think I can, but I don't know how noticeable they're gonna be. But overall, extremely happy with the bodywork and the paint. Once this thing dries, I'll get the masking tape off and the paper off, and we'll pull it out into the sun and take a better look. But overall, very happy. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. Please stay tuned for the next video coming out very soon. I'm going to show you how we take this paint job to the next level. It does look good as is, but we're going to dive in and I'll show you my method to wet sand, compound, and polish to make this paint job really stand out. As always, I love to hear your comments and your feedback, so please leave them below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this coming soon. And I'll see you on the next one.